Welcome to the Casual Shooters Podcast, your premier podcast for the casual shooter. I am your host, David Riddle. My guest this week comes by way of Area 6. He's a grandmaster in USPSA. He also teaches on the side. As far as I know, on the side, who knows, could be his full-time gig. We're about to find out. He is also the South Carolina section coordinator for USPSA. If you would, join me in welcoming to the show, Mr. Ryan Lee.
How's it going, Dave?
Good. How are you?
We're in the middle of the summertime rush with the heat and everybody wanting to hit in the rain, so we're wide open. I'm glad I was able to squeeze this in.
Yes, me too. Yeah, I can only imagine. I see in the next week it's going to be in the mid to upper 90s up here, an hour south of D.C., so I can only imagine what the temperature is going to be like in South Kakalaki.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's kind of our everyday here in the summer. It's if you're not in that 92 to 95 range, then something's going on.
Yeah, once it gets above 75, I immediately start sweating.
I can handle the heat. The heat doesn't bother me that much. I can drink enough water. What kills me is the cold. There's absolutely no way I could move to a northern state and continue doing what I do. I can't stand the cold.
I was telling someone before, back in January was the first match I've been to in almost 3 years. Because I had knee issues. I was surgery on one knee, surgery on the next knee, dealing with all of that. And it was 12 degrees when we started and 18 degrees when we finished. And it was a 6-stage match, and by stage 4, I was taking off my coat.
Yeah, no, you can keep that. You can keep that. So as a young man, when I first started shooting this sport, it didn't matter. It could be 20 degrees, raining. It could be 120 degrees. Like, I'm going to a match. But they say with age comes wisdom, and I guess with experience it does well. And these days, if it's under 50 and any chance of rain, I'm not showing up. If it's going to be dry, I'll go down to 40, and then that's my cutoff. After that, I'm just going to dry fire in the house where it's nice and warm.
Okay. So if you would, Ryan, take just a quick moment and introduce yourself.
So my name's Ryan Lee. I'm the owner and operator of Empirical Concepts Training. I'm a full-time firearms instructor. I work in this space full-time. I quit the corporate world a few years back and pursued a career in doing something I love and I'm passionate about, and luckily enough, it's working out for me. I'm also the South Carolina section coordinator. I've been doing that since last year. I'm a grandmaster carry optic shooter, though these days I'm mainly playing in limited optics.
Okay. Did you also shoot PCC at the South Carolina section?
Unfortunately, I did. Okay. So I'm the section coordinator, and I spent all the time to build the match, so I wanted to shoot it, but unfortunately at the time I had an injury to my left arm. I tore my lateral tendon in my left arm, and I just could not reliably hold the pistol to a point where I felt effective or even sometimes safe with it. So I wasn't going to spend all that time setting everything up and putting it into the match. I thought we put on a really great match. So I had a guy up that way, said, man, you got to come out and shoot. Here's a PCC. So I grabbed a PCC and played around with it a little bit.
Were you able to manage with that?
I mean, I made it through the match. I didn't do very well.
Okay.
But I was able to get through. You know, the grip pressure is not quite as important with your left hand on a PCC as it is with a pistol. So I was able to make it through. Just kind of took some Tylenol and went after it.
Put on some dry socks, took some Advil, and everything's good to go.
That's it. Drink water and carry on.
There you go. Yeah. Bathe in water down there.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to hit you with some icebreaker questions, kind of gets the hard drive spinning and makes the rest of the conversation easy.
Cool.
Because you're a full-time firearms instructor, though, I'm going to change the first question just a hair. Okay. Normally, I would ask you to go back to the beginning of your shooting career and say, give me one shooting skill that you would like to learn instantly. However, I'm going to change it up a little bit. Since you teach this stuff full time, if there was one skill that you would love for all of your students to already have by the time they get to you, what would it be?
That's a great question, Dave. One skill. One skill. I would probably say, you're talking about a physical skill, touching the gun.
Correct. To make your job easier teaching them.
Grip. Instantaneously grip. If everybody could come in the door immediately with a good grip, then you're cutting out a lot of time of building and getting people to process and operate at a much faster pace.
Okay, I like that. So you spend a lot of time dealing with people's lack of a good grip.
I do, and that's because I think it's one of the two most vital aspects of shooting a handgun quickly. It's something early on that I struggled with, that I didn't quite understand how important a consistent grip was. And it doesn't have to be a death grip, because the gun's going to recoil no matter how hard you hold it. But being able to understand how vital it is to have a consistent grip on the pistol, because once I get the gun acting consistently in recoil, then I can work on the timing of it, kind of push the limits. But once you're getting that inconsistent lift of the dot, or if you're archaic and iron sights, then you really have to dive in to get that dialed in before you can start pushing speed and adding accuracy to it.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a good grip and you can predict what the gun's going to do every time you pull the trigger, then you can do everything you need to do knowing exactly what's going to happen.
Exactly. It allows you to kind of start pushing the boundary a little bit and shaving time off between your splits, your transitions. It's, yeah, that grip is absolutely vital.
Okay. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
One superpower, I would probably say, being that I am who I am and I do what I do, it would probably be the superpower that Deadshot has, where he can, no matter what he's holding, a baseball, a BB gun, a rifle, a shotgun, he can immediately hit the exact spot he wants to from any angle. I always thought that was one of the coolest things.
So it wouldn't be reading everybody's minds and knowing what they're thinking?
Nah, that sounds like it get really loud. And sometimes you may not want to know what people are thinking, right?
Well, this is true. Absolutely. I was just thinking, as an instructor, I was like, as you're talking, I'm like, would you want to know what all of your students are thinking? And again, there might be a lot of noise in there.
Yeah.
What is one food you'll never grow tired of?
Sandwiches.
Sandwiches?
You can add so much variety in. You can eat a sandwich every day of the week and not eat the same thing twice. This is true. As a kid, Subway was like my favorite restaurant, just because I could go in there and get something different every time from the same place. My wife thinks I'm crazy. She was like, how do you eat the same thing every day? And I was like, because it's not the same thing. It's a sandwich, and you can change the different textures of the different foods and the taste and everything about it, make it something completely different, even though it looks the same.
Interesting. So if you went into Subway, so let's say you're going to Subway, let's say you're traveling to teach, and Monday through Friday you're going to a Subway. Are you getting a different sandwich every day?
Usually, and it depends. If it's the entire week, I may repeat one or two of them, but it's not going to be the same exact order every time. I like to get a little crazy with it.
So you're not going to be like me and you're getting a roast beef with A, B, and C on it every single time.
Oh no, one day I'm getting a sweet onion chicken teriyaki, the next day I'm getting an Italian, the next day I'm getting a chicken bacon ranch, every day.
Okay. All right. I'm one of those people, I go to a restaurant, I find what I like, and I stick with it. Because I'm like, if I try something I don't like, then I'm going to feel like I wasted my money and my time.
Right. I get that.
If you could have dinner with one person in any time throughout history, other than a relative or a wife, who would it be?
Probably say JFK. I feel like he was about to open the door on quite a few things, and he didn't get the chance to do that. So I'd like to hear what he was going to say.
So pre-Dallas.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I kind of like that. Yeah. I almost wonder if it would be interesting then to have a sit-down dinner with him and Bobby together.
If that's an option, I'd definitely take that option.
Yeah. I mean, why not? I mean, it's all conjecture anyway. So, yeah. Very interesting. My wife and I took our sons to Texas one year. We flew into Dallas. So then we stayed in Dallas overnight, went to Fort Worth the next day, went down to Austin, then San Antonio, we went to Waco, then Austin, San Antonio, and then flew out from San Antonio. But the whole reason I bring that up is, so we went to there in Dallas where JFK was assassinated. I can't think of the actual place at the moment. But anyway, we went there. We went to the museum. We were walking around, and we had like a guide telling us so much about what was going on. And very odd that George Herbert Walker Bush happened to show up on the scene unannounced, like just minutes after the assassination.
I'm not going to get too far into it because these theories we could talk for a few hours on this, but there's a lot of those funny coincidences throughout our American history if you look at those.
There sure is. Absolutely. And I am open-minded enough to go, Man,
you can spend some time digging down these rabbit holes.
Oh my gosh, yeah you can. Holy cow, can you? All right, final one. If money were no object, what would you be doing right now?
I'd probably be doing the same thing, maybe a little bit nicer house. We'd be traveling a little bit more. That's something my family and I really love to do, is travel. That's kind of the next on our iteration list is travel a little bit more to the western side of the country. We've been up and down the East Coast. I'd probably be doing the same thing, man. I love to teach. It's something that I've got a passion for. Just watching those light bulbs turn on and working with students, mainly in one-on-ones, and just kind of watching them go through the progression and training plan, and they just light up, man. It's awesome to see guys put in the work and then see it pay off, and then them to stay hungry. I wouldn't give it up for anything in the world.
Okay. Would you change? Would you have a bigger range? Or would you just do more traveling to teach? How would that look?
I'd probably just travel a little more. Buy me a nice big RV, and travel a little bit more. So my front yard is about an 8-acre field. I've got 140 yards to the wood line from my front porch, and nothing but miles of swampland and woods behind it. So anytime you pull into my house, there's some type of stage of fire or something set up in my front yard. I'd more than likely be driving a little bit newer truck than I've got now. But yeah, I wouldn't change too much, man.
So when you say you would buy an RV, would your family go with you if you're traveling around teaching? Okay. Oh, yes. I like it.
Yeah, that's actually kind of the plan that we have moving forward now, is that when I left the corporate world, I kind of understood what needed to happen. That, I got to pay my dues for a few years. I need to build my curriculum. I need to build my brand recognition in order to travel. But the ultimate goal is to build the brand recognition to the point to where I can start booking classes out more towards the central and western part of the country, and then take my family with me, travel, work for a few days training guys while we're out there, and then spend a week or so exploring the area and hit the next.
Interesting. Do you guys have kids?
I do. I have a almost 7-year-old and a 4-year-old.
So if let's say you were traveling more, almost like full-time traveling around teaching, I assume your wife would be okay with homeschooling?
Yeah, we homeschool now.
Oh, there you go. Cool. I kind of regret not doing that with my kids growing up.
It's something that we looked at, and it's very hard to control what your kid is exposed to and what they're being taught. When they're in a public school system or even a private school system. And it's not even if you've got a great school system that teaches an awesome curriculum, there's other kids that come from different walks of life that can also influence your kids. And we just felt that at a very early age, like our children are, they're extremely influential. And so instead of both of us working and almost an entire paycheck going to pay for childcare when they were young and then sending them to school, we just made the decision that my wife's great. She's got a degree in child and family studies, so she decided to become mom and teacher at the same time.
Okay. I knew some people who had done homeschooling, and talking to them, and they were like, yeah, she was done homeschooling her kids by like 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. And then, they had their kids doing other stuff that most kids never get an opportunity to do. Well, they actually had some farmland, so they would tend to the chickens and tend to other stuff, and then they were able to do extracurricular activities on top of that. So it was like, wow, your kids are getting way more life experience than the normal kid who spent, like mine, who spent 8 hours at school.
Well, that's one of the benefits of homeschooling is that it is individualized teaching. Like, we know how my daughter learns, how she best receives information, how she best learns and retains it, so that we can then teach it in that manner. It's not, hey, this is this one way, and we're going to beat it in with a hammer until you get it. So it doesn't take 8 hours of school in a day to get through the lesson plan. It takes an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then we can go work on some life skills, and they can go water the chickens and chase the dog around the yard and explore in the woods. Right.
Look for alligators in the backyard.
Oh yeah. If we had alligators here, I'm 100% certain my kids would carry one up. It is any random day of the week, they'll walk up holding snakes and lizards and frogs and got a bucket full of animals they caught. They are fearless with animals.
How much does that scare you sometimes?
It does somewhat, because we do have a bad copperhead problem around where I'm at. But luckily they're pretty good with the snakes. They know what a venomous snake looks like, and they're pretty good with staying back. But unfortunately they've also learned what a garter snake looks like, and they'll reach down and grab one of those up pretty quick too.
Right. That's okay. You get bit by one of those, meh, who cares? Put a little rubbing alcohol on it, it'll be good.
Oh yeah. I remember growing up, my cousin got in trouble because he caught one and put it in his book bag and took it to school with us. I didn't enjoy that too much.
Oh, it's still better than a gun.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, that's funny. I don't know how many videos I've watched of. I saw a video of a kid who was like, hey, Mom, he followed me home, and his kid walks in holding this raccoon.
Nice. That's my kind of kid.
Yeah. That's exactly what your kids were reminding me of as you were talking. I was like, oh, all these videos going through my head. It's funny.
It's funny watching her when we're out at one of our co-op groups, or we're out at some function with family, and some woman or something, they'll see a frog, like, it's a frog, and Leona will reach over and pick it up, and be like, you want to hold it?
Well, that's good that she's not afraid to do stuff like that. That's awesome.
Oh, yes. She's fearless.
Now, that was all the hard ones. So now that we got your hard drive working, and mine as well, did you grow up in South Carolina?
I did. So actually, the area I live now is the same area that I grew up in most of my whole life. I moved away when I was 16. My mom, myself, my sister, we moved to North Carolina, and I ended up graduating high school in North Carolina. Joined the military, stayed up there, moved around a bit, and then ended up actually rekindling my relationship with my high school sweetheart from down here in South Carolina, and drove down for the weekend when I got back from my first deployment, and haven't left since.
All right, we got to back up a minute. What branch did you join?
I was in the Army National Guard.
Okay. What was your MOS?
It changed a few times, but it was originally 13 Delta, then 13 Juliet, but it's a mouthful. It's an Automated Field Artillery Tactical Data Systems Specialist, and that's a lot of words to explain that I did all the calculations for how to get artillery fire that is sitting here to hit way over there.
Right. How much of that, though, was computerized?
So it was mandated that you learn it manually, and every year we had to certify to do it manually.
Right.
When I was running my section, we did it manually every year. But yes, it's the digital age. Everything's so much quicker with technology. But the systems you have to use are extremely, extremely complex. And taking to learn those and all the little intricacies to keep it up and running was the hard part.
Oh, wow. Okay. How long was the schooling for that?
AIT for that one, I think it was about 2 months, 2.5 months.
Okay. Add 50 fire for effect?
Pretty much. A lot of it, honestly, is on-the-job training. You go through, and for that job, there's so much information thrown at you in a short amount of time, and there's so many different things you have to understand about what affects what when you're doing that. You really do get on-the-job training. They give you a little bit of basics of everything, then go join your unit, and you'll get trained up there.
Right. That's where it starts to make sense, and you learn the finer points of it.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. I was not in the Army. I was in the Marines, but we did a lot of call for fire. I actually went to Naval Gunfire School, so I'm not unfamiliar with it.
It was actually because of the Marine Corps that I joined the military. I actually remember being like 14 or 15, and one of my friends asked me, he was like, "Hey man, we should join the Army." And I was like, "That is so dumb. Like, why would you sign your life away to go fight somewhere else for this country?" And I was like, "That's the dumbest idea I heard of." And then, a couple years go by, and then my older brother, he joins the Marine Corps, and we go down to Parris Island and watch him graduate. And at the time, I'm 16, about to turn 17, and I feel the patriotism and obviously the competition with my brother. It's like I can't let him outdo me. So the very next week, I get back to school and I start going and talking to recruiters, and Marine recruiters like, "I'll give you $5,000 and I'll have you in boot camp, 6 months after you graduate." And it's my junior year of high school. And the Army guy was like, "Hey, come here real quick." He said, "I'll give you $10,000. I'll have you in boot camp this summer after you graduate." The National Guard guy was like, "Hey, over here." It's like, "I'll give you $20,000. I'll let you go to boot camp between your junior and senior year of high school." And I was like, sold.
That's actually okay. I didn't know you could go between your junior and senior year.
Yep.
Okay. I joined the month after my junior year. So I was in delayed entry for 11 months. And then 2 weeks after I graduated high school, I was at Parris Island.
It was actually pretty cool. And I think the reason they were doing that, because this was back in 06, 07, and we were really making a bigger push to up our numbers for pushing back into Iraq and some of the bigger cities.
Right.
You could get a waiver for anything. You could have felony
charges.
Yeah. They give you a waiver for it.
I think that was when they increased the age limit, too, to join.
They did. I was in boot camp. I was the youngest guy in my boot camp because I actually signed up 2 weeks after my 17th birthday. So I was the youngest guy in our company, and I was actually bunked up with the oldest guy in our unit, and he was 38 years old going through boot camp.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
We had a guy in our platoon who had crossed over from the Army, so he had to go back through boot camp for the Marine Corps, and he was like 27, and that's where I learned that 28 was the cutoff. So like he was just a few months shy of his 28th birthday when he came in. So so to us, he was like really old,
yeah.
But he was also way wiser than the rest of, because we were all kids,
Yep. It was the same in our ring. He was there, and he was this older guy, but he was kind of the voice of reason when you got all these teenagers, young 20-year-olds that are trying to push something. He was the one that tells like, "Hey, slow down, guys. Think about what you're doing first."
No brains, all testosterone.
All of it.
Yeah, that's all it is. There's a saying, young, dumb, and something else, but...
Yep. It is true. Get in a barracks room with a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds.
Oh, my gosh. A lot of stupid decisions being made there.
So many.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. So, all right, you go into the Army. Or the Army National Guard. You're doing this whole artillery thing, which is cool. Are you still in the Guard? Did you get out of the Guard?
No, I got out after 16 years.
16? Wow, 16 years.
16, yes, sir.
Are you old enough to have been in for 16 years?
I am. I'm in my late 30s.
Okay. All right, so now because you have the part-time Guard. You're what everybody would think of as a Guard member. I spent time in the Army Guard and the Air Guard.
Right.
So I'm experienced in both of those. But you also have full-time guard. What were you?
I was primarily M-Day, which was the part-time. I did serve at a couple of different times. Stateside active duty orders, AGR, Active Guard Reserve. But for a majority of my 16 years, I was M-Day soldier. But what I will say, if anybody's listening that's considering joining, is dependent upon your MOS and what unit you're going to, they have different operational tempos, right? So some guard units you'll go into, and it literally is 2 days a month and then 2 weeks in the summer, and that's all you do. I was with the 30th Heavy Combat Brigade team, so our op tempo was really high. We were deploying every 2 to 3 years. Generally, we would have 4 to 5 day drills throughout the year, and then we would have 2 separate active duty training cycles for 2 to 3 weeks at a time throughout the year.
I would even go as far to say that it depends on whether you're in the Army or the Air Guard, because the Army Guard unit close to me that I left when I joined, when I transferred from the Air to the Army Guard. So I didn't have any broken time there, but the Army unit here was a sapper unit, and they were deploying regularly as well. The Air Guard unit I was in, they were an F-16 support unit. They were the 192nd Fighter Wing, so they had F-16s. They deployed, but none of the people that I served with ever really deployed. So it also depends on, which branch you actually get into, what your job is. There's a lot of stuff, but I would say the Army Guard probably deploys more frequently than does the Air for enlisted people.
I'd say so, yeah. I mean, that was my experience, at least.
So if you were your standard part-timer with the Guard, what was your full-time job?
Man, I bounced around and did a lot of stuff. I did everything from building houses. I was an extrusion technician, turning recycled plastic into fiber. Where I was an 18-wheeler mechanic for quite a long time. It's hard work, but that's good money. And then I entered the corporate world, and that's where I ended up going with that as far as a career path that eventually led me to where I am now.
If you don't mind me asking, what did you do in the corporate world?
So I did corporate management, and then I also did some sales as well.
Okay.
The only reason I did sales is because I was good at it, and it was a requirement to take upper management position that you spend time in sales and hit certain metrics.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, it still helps with what you're doing now.
Oh, it absolutely does, yes.
Yeah, that translates for sure. So were you a marksmanship instructor in the the Army Guard?
I was a marksmanship instructor, and it sounds really cool, but you've been in the military, you know what some of those cool name jobs really are. It's just that you know a lot about the subject, and you do a lot of planning and logistics for all of the guys that are coming in behind me. But yes, I was. That's where I started teaching, and that's where I found that I had a love for teaching and instructing and coaching, is that me taking something that I know and being able to get that information across to the next person, and having all the different soldiers come through and seeing the different learning styles, because no 2 people are the same. I can say the same piece of information to you and the 3 guys next to you, and only one of you, it actually clicks forward and you understand it. So I had to learn quickly how to adapt and change information, but still have them be able to execute the task at hand.
100% agree with that. How did you go about becoming a marksmanship instructor?
They saw my range scores and saw that I was pretty good at it. And I had a captain approach me and said, "Hey, you're pretty good at this. What'd you just shoot?" So 40 out of 40. It's okay. You're going to school. You're going to start teaching.
Oh, so they actually sent you to a school for it?
Yeah.
Okay. Because in the Marine Corps, it's different. Like if you go and shoot every year they have division matches. They have Eastern Division, Western Division, Far East Division matches. And if you shoot one of those, you go through so many weeks of practice before you actually shoot the match that you end up being awarded the PMI MOS, which is primary marksmanship instructor. And the point there is that when you go back to your unit, when your unit goes to the range for qualification, you're one of the people that helps them prepare and
Right.
helps train and teach and make sure, to get people through the qualification course.
That's very similar to what I was doing. Extremely similar. Now, obviously, the Marine Corps, they take it a little bit more seriously as they take their ability to shoot on an overall standpoint than the Army does. The Army doesn't really pride itself on its marksmanship. Maybe it's elite units and frontline fighting force that does, but it seems like in the Marine Corps, they really put an emphasis on every Marine's a rifleman, and they take a lot of pride in being able to shoot out to 500.
Yeah, I don't know if it still does, but back when I was in, it actually affected your score to get promoted.
Yep.
So, yeah, it was a big deal. As did your physical fitness score. There were a lot of things like that.
That's the key thing to leadership, is how fast you can run a mile, right?
Oh, goodness. I would fail that one today.
Yeah, that was probably one of the bigger frustrating points within the Army, is that you'd see guys come in and they're really great leaders, but they were probably just around mid-pack when it comes to the physical aspect of doing the job and running and the PT test. But they placed such a high emphasis on taking the guys that were the fast runners and could do the most push-ups and pushing them into leadership positions, that you would often end up with really bad leaders leading young soldiers into situations where the outcome can be very dire.
Right. Yeah, I think that's probably across all the services. So how long were you in the private sector before you transitioned from your last corporate stuff to being a full-time instructor?
So I quit my corporate job, I want to say it was late 2022. And I had been with that company for 4 years, and I was with the company previous to that for 3 years.
How many conversations was that between you and your wife?
It was a lot. So the corporate world, while financially you can make a lot of money, especially as you start rising the pole in the corporate world. And I was making really good money at the time, but honestly, I really hated who it was turning me into. I was putting in an insane amount of hours that I would leave at dark, get back after dark, and I was doing something that I hated doing. I hated the example that was setting for my kids, that I was sacrificing everything just to earn $1. And just over time, my wife saw how unhappy it was making me. That it was like the life had been sucked out of me, and all I cared about was work. Everything was pushing for work, and then even when I wasn't at work, I was just miserable. I didn't have any happiness because I knew more work was coming.
Right.
I could never turn it off. And honestly, I woke up on a Tuesday, and I looked over at her, and I was like, I'm going to quit my job today. I was like, what? I was like, yeah. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was like, I'm either quitting or I'm grabbing my gun and see how the end of it tastes. Like, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I want to wake up every day excited about life and excited to go out and be in a career path that excites me to wake up in the morning, not one where I open my eyes every day and said, oh God, I got to do this again today. So called my manager, showed up, put in my notice, and the next day I was off and running. And I was already instructing at the time. I was working with another company. I've been hired as an instructor for another company. And I was teaching mainly CWP classes. I wasn't happy doing it. I was using that as a stepping stone. And I'd really been trying for a long time to get that company to push in, like, hey, let's do some more advanced stuff. Like, I'm a competitive shooter. Like, there's a lot of information that a lot of folks need that we can teach. And it never happened, so I decided to step out and create my company, and took off running and haven't looked back since.
I figured there was going to be a transition period, but you literally went from 60 to 0 to 60.
Absolutely.
How long did it take you to go once you quit the job? to get everything up and running to where you were comfortable with where it was going?
So I'm not going to lie, Dave, it took a while. There was a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of stress, especially those first 2 years, 2.5 years. It was just grinding. And there's a lot of times that I was just kind of getting disheartened that
Right.
I'm putting in an insane amount of work into this, and I love what I do, but it's not working out. How do I grow? But I talked to several people that have started companies and been entrepreneurs, and they said, man, you got to be willing to grind through that. You have to be relentless. You have to eat, sleep, and breathe what you're doing. Keep putting in the work, and the results will come. And so that's what I did. I just put my head down, kept working. There were multiple times where like we were days or weeks away from me going and filling out job applications. But just kept my head on the grind and stayed after it, and it ended up pulling through.
Yeah, there's a lot of hours that have to be put in for that stuff. I did it for a little while in the mid 90s when there was no internet, there was no way to, and it was all like word of mouth or advertising some other way. So there's a lot of time you have to devote to it. And sometimes you just need those little bits of words of encouragement from people, that's you just have to have that in order to keep going.
I'm not gonna lie, I absolutely needed those. I've got guys that I've worked with, and other instructors and coaches, the people that I look up to, that at key times when I needed it have reached out and said something to me that kept me going. Because obviously, if you jump into anything like this, there's going to be a lot of self-doubt. Obviously, we want to put on that confident face, but internally at night, when your head's on that pillow, there's those thoughts that creep in, and you get imposter syndrome. But there's guys I've looked up to in the sport for a long time that have helped me out. A lot of students have come through and given me feedback on a professional and on a personal level that's helped me, and it's those things that help me keep going through all the rough times.
Okay, well, that's good. That's really good. And I just had a question in my mind. I didn't write it down. There's a follow-up to what you were saying. I know what it was. How much did your wife help you at all in those early days of establishing the business?
She did not, because at the time we had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
And she's homeschooling. She's full in on that. And she takes that role very, very seriously. So I kind of handled most everything else on my own.
Well, yeah. I was going to say at the same time, though, I mean, she's handling half of the load so that you can do the other half. You know what I mean? So you can devote yourself to it. So, okay. All right. That's still teamwork.
Absolutely.
It seems like you started your competition journey before you started your full-time teaching journey.
I did. Much before, yes.
Okay. So how did you find competition shooting? Like, okay, you were a marksmanship instructor in the Guard, but that wasn't your full-time gig.
Right.
In the Guard. That, it was something totally different. So how do you go from just shooting in the Guard, for your annual qualification to shooting competitively and finding USPSA and all of that?
So I always enjoyed shooting, and I was always pretty good at it. And on the civilian side, there was a few different cops, and there were some SWAT team members that I would go out and shoot with and train with. And I was always better than they were, even though, realistically, you don't get really good firearm shooting training in the military. You don't.
Right.
But when we do stuff, I was always out shooting them. And I was actually on my second deployment. And I remember, I saw some YouTube videos of Jerry and of Clint when he used to shoot with Colt, and it was 3-gun back then. Like 3-gun was the big thing. And I was talking to my wife. We were sitting over there, and she was like, "What do you want to do? Like, where do you want to go in life?" And I told her, I was like, "I'd really start doing that, competing and shooting stuff, and start teaching." And at the time, it was a pipe dream. I was like, okay, I don't even know if that is a real thing to do that. But ended up getting home from that deployment, and I was just watching more, and I had some guns that I was shooting all the time. And I ended up looking up just to Google, hey, how do I find a 3-gun match near me? And I found the practice score website, and it turns out an hour and a half away from me in Lugoff, South Carolina, they held 3-gun matches. So I grabbed just my plain Jane home defense AR with a red dot and a flashlight on it, my EDC Glock 19, and a pump action shotgun that held 4 rounds, and I showed up in my first match. And that kicked everything off. I mean, I knew nothing. I didn't know the rules, how it was scored, anything. I was like, hey, I know I can shoot good. I'm going to show up, see how I do.
And what was your thought when you were driving home?
I'm hooked. I was like, this is my thing. I'm giving up everything else. This is it. I mean, obviously I got my teeth kicked in. I did terrible, but
of course.
But I loved every minute. It was so great. Actually, a funny story I tell people. Like, I showed up to that match and go to the shooters meeting, and they give me all the vital information for a new shooter there, and I've got my stuff, and I'm on my squad, and we're standing by our first stage, and they're calling out the shooting order, and I don't know all the verbiage and how that goes. And a guy looks over at me, he's like, hey, he's like, are you Ryan? I was like, yeah. He's like, you're next up. And in that moment, it felt like a donkey just kicked me in my stomach. My stomach cramped and locked up with nervousness so bad that I started looking around. I was trying to find a bathroom. There was none anywhere close, so I ended up having to waddle all the way back to the range office, and it was out of order, so I had to waddle to the other end of the range to use their porta potty. And I finally come back, and they're like, where'd you go? I was like, I said to go get some real quick. I was like, get on the stage, you got to shoot. And I ended up shooting the first stage and made it through it, and after that, the rest of the day went a lot smoother.
Wow. That was like your icebreaker question.
Yeah, absolutely it was.
Oh, boy. Welcome to 3-gun.
Yeah. And it's not like I picked a discipline to jump in that's very simple to understand and execute and have easy stage plans. I had to jump in one that had the most complexity you could find at the time.
Most number of guns, most different type of ammo, definitely the most complex.
Yeah.
Holy cow. So how long after that did you find practical shooting, whether it be IDPA, USPSA, or whatever it was?
So I found USPSA because the same range held USPSA matches. And one thing I noticed, like, I grew up hunting shotguns. That was kind of that was an easy thing for me. I've been teaching rifles for years. I trained a lot with the rifle, so I was good with the rifle. But I noticed the pistol game really held me back. And so in my mind, I was like, well, if the pistols hold me back and I have to train all 3 of these platforms, let me go shoot USPSA matches only for about a month or 2. And that really forces me into just training with the pistol and getting better with the pistol, and then I'll come back to 3-gun. And I went to my first USPSA match and nearly immediately fell in love. The scoring system with hit factor was so much better than with 3-gun. I really disliked how I could put a round in the shoulder and a round in the hip of a target 3-gun and got the same score as I did if I put it dead center mass. So once I found hit factor and saw, like, hey, you have to have accuracy and speed, I kind of fell in love with it. And since I had such a lack of skills with a pistol, I would say that I was starting to see really quick results from training from those first few weeks and months doing it. I was seeing a lot of progression quickly, and I think that kind of led to me falling in love with USPSA more. And so I shot a few USPSA matches, and then I ended up getting deployed again. And when I come back, jumped back into USPSA, I think I shot maybe 1 or 2 more 3-gun matches, but then that 3-gun kind of died. And since then, I just dove in on USPSA.
How much do you think shooting these matches helped you with your shooting proficiency in the Army?
Oh, leaps and bounds. Leaps and bounds. You never really truly understand what is possible with a firearm in terms of speed and accuracy when you're in the military and you're not exposed to practical shooting, right? You would see people doing it, it's like, they're not hitting anything. Like, they're just pressing the trigger really fast. They're not hitting much. But then you get in, it's like, hey, it is possible. So getting in and learning really how to train and how to kind of push the limit some, and not just doing it this way because that's the way it's always been done, it really kind of opened up my eyes as far as what was possible in the training world and in my own training and skill sets.
Yeah, I don't understand why anybody at any level can say practical shooting, whether it's 2-gun PCSL or USPSA, can't help your job in combat, because it's a direct translation.
I work with law enforcement a lot now. I have a lot of clients that work in law enforcement, and there seems to be this mindset, well, that's a game, and it's going to give you bad habits, and then when you're kicking this door down and serving this warrant, you're going to go back to thinking you're at a USPSA match and try to do some of those skills, and that's just not the case, right? It's the way I look at it is, when it comes into scenarios where you have to have a gun in your hand and you're doing actual work with that gun in a professional manner, is you've got tactics and you've got hard skills. You need to have both.
Yep.
You could separate and train each individually, and I highly recommend that you do. But once you get a really good grasp on those hard skills, all that does is it clears up mental space for processing the tactical problem that you have on hand.
Amen. Yes, 100%. And that's the part I don't understand, because like you're saying, tactics are completely different. That's why any high-level practical shooter could teach SWAT guys, military guys, how to shoot. They're not going to tell you how to incorporate that into your tactics, but the gun handling, the reload. I just had a conversation the other day with John Stryker Meyer, who was a MACV-SAW Green Beret. And one of the things I wanted to talk to him about was, he had talked about, or I knew that they had spent a lot of time on reloads. He even put in his book that I read that in one specific firefight, because there was always only very few of them. It could be anywhere from 5 to 7 of them against an untold number of Vietnamese. And he said the winner is the one who can reload the fastest. And he's like, on this day, we won the reload. So they won the firefight because they were able to reload. Because he was like, we carried 20-round mags, and when you put that thing on full auto, it emptied the mag in a second and a half. So then the race was on to reload. And he said they spent hours practicing reload, and even had little competitions to see who could reload the fastest. This was in 1968. So don't tell me that being able to reload fast doesn't translate to combat.
It does, and it's because they developed a process, right? They got process focus.
Yeah.
Like, how do we get this one skill set? Let's isolate that and let's focus on that. And then they built a process for doing it and finding inefficiencies in it that improve them, and then you rinse and repeat, right? In most law enforcement and military training centers, they're not doing that. It is just the whole picture. We need you to qualify. Can we get you to qualify? And that's about as much thought process as they put into it. It's like, hey, what do we need to do just to get you across that threshold so you can go start doing your job? And they never really dig into the process of why. You ask them why. Well, that's the way we've always done it. Okay, well, let's think a little bit more intrinsically here. Let's think deeper. Okay, why are you reloading your gun that way? Or why are you drawing that gun that way? Well, that's what the guy at the academy said. Okay, when's the last time that he evaluated it and found, is this the most efficient way to do it? Is this the fastest way to do it? Is this the most consistent way to do it? He hasn't. He's teaching it that way because that's the way that he was taught.
Right. Yeah, it's literally like a miniature version of what the military does. We teach you what we need to do to get you through the qual course, and then boop, off you go.
Brother, if I hear another person say, well, my buddy taught me to shoot, he was in the military, so he knows how. Dude, anybody tells me I learned how to shoot in the military, I'm going to go ahead and assume you don't know how to shoot, and I'm going to start you at bare bones basics, because somebody's been there, done that, you don't learn much at all. You learn the extreme basics of how to stand here and hit over there with no time requirements. They don't know.
So I was looking at your website, and we'll get back to the USPSA stuff, but since we're talking about this, it's appropriate now. And you do have like personal advanced CWP course, so concealed weapons permit course. I'm curious with some of your clientele, and even I'll even go as far as say this. There's a former Intel analyst that talks on different podcasts and stuff. Her name is Sarah Adams, and they've talked about some of the sleeper cells that may be in the country. Have you ever considered putting together a course for people that is more scenario based for events that may or may not occur in the United States?
So I did early on. When I started my company, I was going after that. And I thought my target audience was going to be kind of everybody, but it seems like I found my niche, and it pulled me away from that. So right now, I would say about 80% of my clients are competitive shooting based, and the other 20% are civilians and law enforcement. There's some of the law enforcement that wants to get into competitive shooting. There's some law enforcement officers I've been training for a while that they don't want to shoot a match. They don't care to go out and shoot a match, but they want to train to those skill levels. So between those two, I didn't really see a need to offer something like that.
Okay.
Because to be honest, my schedule's full right now. Today's my only off day the entire week, or for the entire next week. So I'm pretty full up. There's a lot of guys that in this area that really love training, and we hit the range quite often. So no, I haven't. When you see the CWP stuff on there, it's because I constantly get asked about it, but you also see the prices on it, and that's because I don't want to teach CWP. I want to teach people the fundamental skills, and the CWP class really is a legal class that there's a little bit of shooting at the end, but there's just not the time to go through all of the coursework you have to do and then actually get any significant type of shooting training in. So I've got that on there just to stop the questions, and if they really want it, they can pay me that price and get it, but just know I don't care to teach CWP anymore. If you want to go learn CWP, I'd recommend, hey man, there's a lot of retired cops have a lot more insight and first-hand information on some of the scenarios they may see than I do. But when you want to learn how to run a pistol really quickly and accurately, and how to train to that, build a training plan, come see me.
Yeah, I see your competitive concepts and your advanced concepts sold out. So
they tend to stay that way. I don't offer too many right now, just because I'm not traveling much outside of the South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia area, and you really don't want to burn out your clientele base on classes. So I try to offer a few throughout the year, and that's honestly for me to just keep revising the curriculum, the people that really want to come in and do it. But I would say a majority of my business, honestly, is the one-on-one coaching and instruction.
Okay. How, from the time you took you competed in your first 3-gun course or competition till you made Grandmaster and USPSA, what was that timeline?
So it was 6 years, but there's an asterisk beside it, because I started shooting 3-gun and I did it for, I think 4 or 5 months, and then I got deployed for a year. And I came back and I did it for a few months, and then we got pregnant with my son, and so I took about 6 months off. And then I come back and I just started getting back into it and shot for a month or two, and then my dad went into hospice care. I moved him into my house, and for the next 4 or 5 months kind of helped him through the end of his life, and then stayed away from it for another several months, and then jumped back in. I would say 2022 is when I really got serious about shooting and training and trying to be good at the sport. It was after my dad passed when I really wanted to see progress and see what I was capable of. And then I made, so that was late 2022, and then I made Grandmaster early of 2025.
Well, that's also the same time you're like quitting the corporate world and starting your own company too.
Dude, my son was born, my dad died, and I quit the corporate world and started my company all in the same year.
Were you trying to commit suicide?
I was trying not to, man.
That's a lot of change in a short period of time.
It is, and honestly, so my dad passing away kind of helped motivate me to do that. It kind of reminded me of how short life is, because he was only 62, right? Yeah, so it reminded me how short it is, and that he didn't spend his life doing something he loved. He'd spent his life doing something he had to do to keep earning money, but he didn't wake up every day and love what he did. And after going through that and watching that progress and all the emotions and everything else that comes with it, I did a lot of deep dive and analyzing and thinking deeply about life, and came to the conclusion that I needed to quit my job and go work for the next 2.5 years without pay.
And that's true. Yeah, that's not an exaggeration. What is your competition? I mean, as busy as you are, how is that affecting your ability to compete at this time?
So it does. I wear quite a few hats. So obviously I'm running empirical concepts full time. Yes, I'm on the range all the time, but there's not really many ranges close to me. I live in a small town, so there's not a large population center around my town. There are a few guys around me that I'll train, but for the most part I have to travel to Charleston, to Columbia, up towards Greenville, towards Myrtle Beach, to the larger population centers where there actually is a clientele base. So when I do that, I kind of schedule them out pretty tight, so there's not a lot of time for me to do a lot of training. On top of that, I'm also one of the people helping run the Tim Gaskin Legacy Foundation, which is a nonprofit. We help get youth shooters. We help get them funding, buy them guns and ammo and gear, and pay for them training and their membership to get them started in the sport. I'm the state coordinator. I've got 2 small kids. Like I stay going, man. So as busy as the company has gotten, especially over the last year, it has hindered me. I've also had some physical setbacks. Like I told you, I tore the tendon in my left arm, and now I've got tendonitis in my right arm. So that set me back a little bit. It is definitely a skill set to be able to juggle and manage all this while also trying to train myself and move up. But I've had to have that in their conversations like, hey, right now I'm building a brand, I'm building a life for me and my family. There's going to be time for me to train myself and go back out and chase the national title again. This just isn't the cycle of life for it. Right, the season of life we're in, I'm in building, I'm in growth mode, so that's where we're at.
I had asked Mason Lane about that. I think it was December of 23 or December of 24. I asked him straight up. I said, how much has teaching affected your ability to improve as a shooter? And he said, I definitely think it has, because I've been a full-time firearm instructor, and I know that sucks a lot of time away from you being able to improve yourself. So that does make it hard.
It does. Oh, and I forgot to mention, up until the beginning of this summer, I was also a full-time college student doing all this and a full-time college student at the same time.